solitary law without failure, you would have had life based on law. Jesus did. In Jesus' flesh, we're going to see this next week, He condemned sin. That doesn't mean in His sinful nature, because Jesus didn't have a sinful nature. But you see, by His flesh, in other words, He was capable of obeying every rule and of every law. And because He did so, He condemned law where it was unable to, He made law powerless in order that it was unable to condemn Jesus, because there was nothing about Jesus to condemn. Well, this law that was supposed to result in life, what happened? It proved to result in death. It killed me. The very thing that should have guided me to life was the very thing that ended up slaying me. Well, how do you know that, Paul? For, here's why, let me explain it. Sin took an opportunity through the commandment and it deceived me. But you see, the law is not what killed you. Sin used your weak flesh. That's what killed you. In fact, Romans 8:3, we're going to see next week, says that. For what the law could not do, why could it not do it? It was weak because of our flesh. Our flesh didn't follow all the rules. And when you failed to follow the rule, Mr. Sin said, "Ha! Gotcha!" And don't you do it again, which just made you want to do it even more. And it ruined our lives. For sin taking opportunity through the commandment. It deceived me. What do you mean it deceived me? Well, that's what happened. You and I misunderstood the purpose of law. We began to think, if I can just do better. If I can make my eyeballs quit looking at those things. If I can make my feet quit going there. If I can make my tongue quit gossiping. If I could. And everything you were saying was about your flesh. If I could get my flesh to do right, I could overcome sin. And the more you emphasize those laws, the more your flesh said, I don't like that. I want that and I don't want that. It inflamed your passions even the more, and so that you and I became more sinful than man could imagine. And we're going to see that too later in the next paragraph. For sin taking opportunity through the commandment, it deceived me. It made me start thinking I could be saved by it, when really it was the thing that was going to slay me. You see, law is your friend only if you obey it. The first time you fail to obey law, it becomes your enemy. It stands up in judgment against you. And it calls for that natural consequence, which is death. It deceived me, and through it, it killed me. We misunderstood its role, and we're going to see that beginning with chapter 9 all the way up to chapter 11, how the Jews misunderstood the purpose of law. They thought law would save them. Law would tell you how to have life, but once you broke it, it can't save you from the condemnation of law. No matter how well you keep it, it cannot reverse what you've done. You've done the crime, now you have to pay the time. It deceived me and it killed me. So then, the result is that sin, through the commandment, it killed me because it pointed out my sin. But the point of all this is, just like he began, is the law sin? And he finishes this short paragraph and sums up and says, so then, it's not the law that's the problem. It never was the problem. It's your flesh that's the problem. And if you keep on counting on your flesh as the basis of getting to heaven, the next paragraph is going to say, you're not going to get to heaven. You're not going to get to heaven by your flesh. You're not going to get to heaven by doing it all right. Because if you've ever sinned one time, you're already wrong. And even if you never sinned again, but you're going to, you would still be wrong when you sin the next time. Doing what's right today doesn't change the fact that you did what was wrong yesterday. So then the law is holy. And it is. There's nothing wrong with the law. It never was. It was right. It was right. It was right. And the commandment is holy. Every single one of the commandments in the law is holy. And they're righteous and they're good. But the problem is, it's my flesh. I was not good. So what is the law for? You know, God in His infinite wisdom certainly knew what was going to happen in our flesh. He knew that. In fact, the basic desires you have, God put them there. God put the desire in you, just to say it bluntly, for sex. If He didn't put that desire in you, there would be no you and me, because creation would have came to an end a long time ago. But the problem is, our flesh wants more of that than it's supposed to want. It's supposed to just want sex with your spouse. But it starts wanting sex with somebody else. Why? Because the law said, no, just with the wife. Just with the husband. And your flesh goes, why? Why can't I have the other ones too? And it inflames your passions. You see, all these passions you have, they're good. They were put there for a reason. But the flesh wants to run wild with those passions. So if you trust your flesh, guess what it's going to give you? Exactly what it has to offer. The only thing it has to offer is its passions. So the more you trust it, the more it gives you what it has to offer. Trusting it in order to live righteously, it is going to give instead what it has to offer, which is its passions. So the law killed you. You and I want to escape that. And so you might say, okay, Jeff, I see the law is good and it had good intentions. But nonetheless, the law slew me. It killed me. I don't like that. What can I do about it? So what do I need it for? Why do we need law in the first place? Paragraph title. We're almost done. We're not going to digest this paragraph. We're just going to read it. It says here, though the death-inspiring husband is gone. I worked a long time on that title. You like that? I don't like that title. I worked a long time on it, though, because I was trying to find a way to bring it all into one thought. The death-inspiring husband, that's law. You know, the law was perfect, but because of the flesh, it inspired death in us by causing our passions to inflame. Though the death-inspiring husband is gone, I still need someone to deliver me from my weakness, and that is my flesh. I think this next illustration brings out that point.
Hi, I'm self-control.
And I'm self-indulgence.
Self-indulgence, are you okay?
I feel like I feel like I was hit by a train.
Again, huh?
I feel like an anaconda has wrapped its coils around me and is squeezing the life out of me.
That's graphic. What happened?
Oh man, you should have been at a party last night. It was the awesomest.
Really? What'd you guys do?
Man, I have no...
Great. Sorry I missed it.
See, the law tries to tell us how life would go better for you. If we had just followed it, life would have went better. But we didn't. Mr. Sin stood up and used that very law that should have given you life, and he killed you with it. And he inflamed your passions with it so you'd become just 10 times more sinful. And so here's what Paul says about that. He said, I see a different law in the organs, my tongue, my mouth, my eyeballs. I see a different law in the organs of my body, and it's waging war against the law of my mind. And it's making me a prisoner of the law of sin, which is in my organs. You see, your flesh wants to do things that it's not supposed to do. You're made out of two parts. The real you, the eternal part of you, it doesn't need sex. It doesn't need to be arrogant. It doesn't care about those things. But you see, your flesh has these passions in it. It's passions that you need to survive in this world and for humanity to go on. But those passions get out of control. And both parts, the flesh and the spirit, they're both you. The question is, who's going to win the war? Who's going to control the other half of you? And how are you going to do it? And what will be the basis by which you show yourself righteous before God? In verse 13 and 14, Paul talks about his situation. Through the commandment, sin might become utterly sinful. Why? You see, the more commandments that were there, the more passions got inflamed. Like I mentioned before, if it was left up to you and I to just figure out what was sin, like murder, rape, robbing the bank, we might have had a real short list, and we might have been going around thinking we were pretty good. And thinking we were pretty good, we would probably not look for a deliverer. But if God could get you in a point where you really understood, I am a mess, I am sinful, my life is destroyed, I will never get back to heaven, you know what will happen then? When you're flat on your back, what do? You look for a deliverer. So God knew I need to help them understand. They don't just have a sin or two. I need to get them to a point when they will turn to me, when they realize they have no other way. For through the commandment, sin might become utterly sinful. For we know that the law is spiritual, but here's the problem. I'm flesh. I'm sold in the bondage of sin. Well, how do you know, Paul? For that which I am doing, I don't understand. For I'm not practicing what I would like to do, but I'm doing the very thing I hate. Any of you like that? Any of you leave here on Sunday, you take the Lord's Supper, And when you take it, you're in your mind, you're on your knees, and you're saying, God, I am